So,
Actually, John might have some air left in that bag.
can you, Micah? Go ahead. Do you know how to do that? Let's see. Well, let's try this way. Oops. Okay. So do the back ones first, Makai. Do the back ones first, and then these two. Then we'll let Liliana do those. Okay. Okay. Be careful. It's fire. Okay. Watch it. Okay. There you go. Do the back ones first, and then let it. Oops. Don't get burned there. That's good. Okay, put that one out, so I don't want you to get burned. Okay, Uh-oh.
You all right?
You okay?
Use
We'll
a
do
candle.
this. No, that's
Tough
okay.
man.
Ow.
We'll let your finger heal there. And Liliana, you do the one right here in the middle.
Okay.
Don't get burned. There. So now, Ellen's going to lead singing Happy Birthday.
Okay. Are we all ready here?
You're on, babe.
Now,
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dad. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
So let's
What are you doing?
Well, no, it came off when you backed up, and I
Okay,
can't see what I'm doing from here. Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, I'll fix that. Just, Sharon, could you just sit it against the wall?
Well, I think they've got. Have you
Okay, step out,
got- Okay, thank you.
step out.
Help Deepa, Makai and Liliana, help Deepa light, blow the candles.
Okay, and I say 1, 2, 3. Now wait, okay, now it's gonna go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I'll blow, I'll blow. Okay.
Yay!
Yay! All right. There we go. Don't hit that. Yeah, we can have a bite. We can have a bite.
Ready for cake?
I don't.
Smile.
Just my face.
Ring. Hello.
It's just my face.
Attention, please.
Thank you, ladies. I want to thank you all for coming and singing the nice rendition of Happy Birthday. And John, the old boy, still got it. Yeah, there's hope for me. And I want to point out to the picture there. They're the ones that started all this. My mom and dad. Their pictures sitting up there, and they were invited, and they're looking down on us and saying, we did good. So now we're going to have a program. I have no idea what's going to be said. And if the stories are too outlandish, they're probably all fiction. So thanks for coming, and I thank Becky Rose for making all this possible. Now I'm done. Now I'm just going to sit back and enjoy.
That's right.
And if I grimace or grimace, then you'll cut that out of the picture.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Jason, you're hired.
So, happy birthday. I wrote this from China, which was perfect because I was in China.
I've never seen you in a tie.
What's that?
In a tie. It's very nice.
I'm wearing a tie.
Yeah, thank you.
Last time you see me in a tie.
That tie, never
But I was in China because of my dad, who initially allowed me to follow my own path, which turned out to be a dead end, but of course he was there to put me on the right. And we repeated that process a few times through my early years, but I finally did get on track, thanks to his love and support. He allowed me to follow my musical career to its appropriate dead end. And then when I decided to go back to school, he supported me in that and allowed me to find a career that allowed me to go to China, which has been an amazing experience. And I, again, wrote this in China because I failed to deliver Becky what I promised her. And it came in February when it should have come in December, and I apologize for that. But thanks for this. You've done a great job. You've been very patient. My dad and I have had a lot of conversations over the years, mostly with him talking and me listening. But what I really learned from this man was watching him through the years and the example he set. I know everything about preparation, planning, due diligence I learned from your example, whether it's doing yard work, which I do better than anybody, doing my job, performing on stage. I learned planning, due diligence, and a sense of pride from you just by watching you. And I won't go into all of them, but there's thousands of stories. Most of them very small, but they left an impression on me. We went on a Boy Scout trip overnight, a pretty good hike. And this man did it in a ankle cast because he'd broken his leg the week before, 2 weeks before, but he promised he'd go on this trip. So there he was in the dust, hiking probably 8 to 10 miles in a cast, which was amazing in and of itself. All the extra balls you made me dig out of the dirt when you were the coach for the baseball team. As he explained it to me, I had to work harder to earn my position because I was his son, and he couldn't show me favoritism. One that sticks out for some strange reason is we were coming back from another Boy Scout trip. We passed a car full of really good-looking girls, probably 5 years our older. We were all geeks in our Boy Scout uniforms. And every time we passed them up, because he had a tendency to drive faster than anybody, we'd make stupid faces and he'd pull back. He'd say, if you guys want to be cool and make an impression, you need to act cool. So we'd pull up closer, then one of us would eventually blow it by making the stupid face, and he'd pull back again. And we did this repeatedly until we all got our shit together and realized, okay, this is what it means to be a man, even though we were 13. But again, I won't go into all of them, but there are just 1,000 examples by watching you. And I've taken all that. It's taken me a lot longer than either of us wanted, but I've taken all that and carved out a very good life for myself. I'm responsible, I'm honest, and most of that I owe to just watching you live your life. So I love you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I love you, my son. Thank you.
Next.
No, next is Ellen.
Oh my goodness.
Next is
Read the rest of
Ellen.
mine then.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
You did very, very good. Very good. It was well worth waiting for.
Very well done.
Very good.
Hey there, pretty girl. Are you having a party
Do you have
time?
a kiss for Deepa? Do you have a little birthday kiss for
Let me sit right
Deepa?
here.
No.
Let's sit on
Johnny on the spot. Here we go. Better get this right.
I would have to read these, so. Happy birthday.
I'm gonna go first, because she's asking me. First off, happy birthday. to you.
Project. Thank you.
That's why
For the old
I
people.
was doing that on purpose. See, to make sure you're paying attention.
Yes, sir.
So, I will read this, but I think it's probably easier for me to go by memory of what I'd written to you, so that you can have this as a copy. But I can say, and honestly, that over the years of going from Mr. Hannah to finally calling you Bob, and so many times you would say, it's Bob. It's not Mr. Hannah, it's Bob. It's not Becky Rose, this is my wife, this is your family. And that was really huge to me. So this last go around of getting to come up to your guys' house and hanging out in the back, your son and I and Ellen, and then it was just you and I and your son sitting around the fire pit. And it was kind of cool because we started sharing stories, and it was just commonality of this and that and beer and fun. And it got to where you and I were sharing a I guess, sort of a kinship of our military background in our youth and our inability to have respect for authority.
Yes.
But it's Mr. Hannah. You don't talk like that. That's respect.
That's bad.
So in that respect, it was a really cool experience for me to get to sit there and have a memorable experience. You know, where you and we shared something that we both experienced. So I don't know. I guess in that respect. Thank you, sir. Outstanding.
Well, we waited a long time for you to
Right?
come into Ellen's life, so thank you.
Yeah, well, she's pretty good to me, so.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm on the spot.
No.
But, so, well, yeah, it wasn't hard to write this, it was hard to keep it short. So, I'm just gonna read it because I'm gonna cry. Dear Dad, on this birthday, I want to do things a little differently. I want to thank you for the gift that you've given me. This list is very long, so here are just a few highlights. Thank you for allowing Liana and me to disguise ourselves as boys and crash the father-son night at Loyola. Thank you for taking me to see Elvis at the Cow Palace.
Oh, that was great.
Thank you for shaving off that mustache and never wearing that polyester powder blue leisure suit.
That one?
I wasn't really going to run away if you wore it. And thank you for saving said leisure suit and giving it to me 30 years later. Thank you for borrowing that sweet BMW to drive me to the airport in style on my first trip abroad. And thanks for making that trip happen. I have a picture I forgot to bring. Thanks for making the phone call to make sure the plan landed safely, and thanks for continuing to do that. I am afraid to fly. My father makes that phone call every time we fly, says, I've arranged, everything's going to be fine. I don't know who he calls, but it's always fine.
One of my first experiences with that, meeting Mr. Hannah, was when I make a phone call.
Yeah.
I always thought, wow, this dude's connected. Whoa, creepy. What have I got myself into? Ah,
Thanks.
cement shoes.
Thanks for spoiling me, but not rotten. You have taught me to be humble and strong. Thank you for always supporting my dream of becoming an actor. I remember as we waited for my turn to audition at Juilliard, we were surrounded by seasoned actors talking about portfolios, headshots, acting jobs that they've been involved in. You leaned into me and whispered, you don't have to do this, Ellen. Well, I did audition and received a very nice letter of rejection. But you saw my fear, and I thank you so much for giving me a chance to bow out with grace. Thank you for letting me go to New York, for trusting me. I remember sitting in a cafe in Gramercy Park and deciding to smoke in front of you for the first time. Thank you for lighting that cigarette. For the record, it was the most awkward smoke I'd ever had. Thank you for never saying I told you so when I ended up dropping that Mao class.
Oh, God, thank God.
Thank you for always defending my honor, no matter what color my hair was. Thank you for being so gracious at my rather sudden nuptials. Thank you for being an amazing first-time grandfather. I remember lying in the hospital bed when the nurse came and said, I had a visitor. You walk in, give me a kiss, hold Emma, then you said you're sorry, but you need to go back to work. Dad, you flew from Portland to San Francisco for a 20-minute visit. You were the talk of the maternity ward. Thank you for supporting me emotionally and financially for all my moves, big and small. Thank you for my work ethic. Thank you for my sense of fairness. Thank you for showing me how one takes care of their family and friends. Thank you for being one of the best storytellers ever. Thank you for being you. I feel quite proud and quite lucky to be your daughter, to be able to celebrate with you. You are so cool. Happy birthday, my daddy. Oh, and here's the picture of the sweet bride.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you. I love you. Happy birthday.
I love you, my daughter. Thank you.
Let me see that sweet picture.
Joey Chitwood.
See?
Can you pass that to me?
Joey!
How?
That's Grandpa when he was young.
This is for my left-handed scrawl. It's kind of hard for you to me to read, but it's actually really funny hearing my mom's letter because mine, I hadn't heard it, and she hasn't heard mine, and there's some similar things in there. So, okay. Here it goes. As a little girl, I always called my grandpa Airplane Grandpa. My earliest memory of a reason for this was because he would be the first person I spotted getting off the plane on our bi-yearly visit from Berlin to America. As I recall, he was always doing everything in his power to be able to meet us at the gate as soon as we arrived. Without a fail, he was always the first face I saw. When I was a little older, my mom told me an incredible story about my grandpa, which made me realize that perhaps subconsciously, my reason for calling my grandpa Airplane Grandpa went back much further than I knew, as far back as the day I was born, actually. My mom tells me that on this first day of my birth, he left a business meeting to fly to San Francisco to meet me for a mere 20 minutes before flying back for his meeting's end. So my grandpa's face was the first lovely sight of family I beheld at those youngest hours in life. Much congruent with the visits to Washington later in life. So in short, my grandpa shall always be the grandest, most exciting teller of life stories, the most adventurous of daredevils and stunt drivers, and finally, most of all, always my airplane grandpa. Happy birthday, Grandpa. I love you.
I love you, Emma. Thank you. So I always have, sidebars, and I remember a sidebar. Siblings, they grow up and they always, have challenges and they go different directions. But I can remember one time we went to Berlin to visit the girls, and we were at some ice cream parlor, and luckily Becky Rose was with me, and we're sitting there, and we had our ice cream, and then some little Greek boy gets up and starts hitting on Zoe. And Emma is across the room like you wouldn't believe, and she puffed up her chest, which wasn't quite there yet, but puffed it up and said, "Hit the road, punk." I thought it was incredible. And she scared the crap out of that little boy. So yeah, that was something your sister did for you. Probably saved your life, because he was really after you. And you were what? You were probably 6? Yeah. Okay.
I get nervous.
You remember that Greek boy?
No.
I know, Emma does.
He's a king now, by the way.
I'll get him. I'll get him. Oh. Okay. Happy birthday, Grandpa.
Speak louder.
Okay. When I attend meetings at work, there are lots of people who do not know each other. We'll often be forced to participate in what we call an icebreaker. My favorite is called Two Lies and a Truth. The object of the game is simple. You tell 2 lies and a truth, and everyone must guess which one is the truth. Why do I like this game? Because I always win. People never believe my grandpa was in the Guinness Book of World Records. This is only one example of how your life experiences have enriched mine. My greatest memories of you are listening to your memories, the good and the bad and the plain old crazy. You inspire me to live fully, and I and I hope that I too can tell those stories to my grandchildren one day. Oh, sorry. That's it. I love you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I love you. Don't cry. We have a copy. This is so nice.
So, I did write something, but I didn't get to put my favorite story in it because I want to keep it short, and you can read this one later. So I've got one of my favorite stories I get to put in there. So as a kid, I was up at Grandpa's house once, and he probably told me one of the scariest stories I may have ever heard in my life. It wasn't about monsters or the worldly disasters. It's about Evel Knievel. So, I had no knowledge to him at this point, and as you know, that was not his around the town car. So Grandpa did stunts, and he did them much better than Evel Knievel did, which naturally would get on the man's nerves. So he decided one day to call Grandpa, I believe, in the middle of the night, and give him a firm warning that, hey, you gotta stop what you're doing. This is my game. This is what I do. It's what people love me for. You can't keep doing this. Don't remember the exact words, but it was basically, screw you. In a nice way, as only Grandpa can put it. But what I didn't realize for the longest time was the coolest part about that story is that which it took me a very long time to learn, but when you're good at something, you shouldn't be ashamed of it or let people tell you how to do it or when to do it or how well. You do. You find something you love and what you're good at, and you do it the best you can, even if you get scary midnight calls from people.
Yeah.
You ain't that tough anyway, so happy birthday, Grandpa.
Thank you.
The toughest man I know.
You say you're going to be looking at
We're ready now. So first off, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Excited to be here. Just from the Northwest right now, but we're in South Dakota, but it was more than an honor to come and see you guys and see everybody, so we're blessed to be here. Thanks for incorporating us in this big celebration. So thank you very much. With everything everyone said, it's been awesome, and it's hard to, there's so many things with your life, it's hard to sum them all up, but anyone who's known you can appreciate everything you've done for all of us, and we want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. But we wrote something, both of us did, hopefully kind of lets you know how we feel about you. So trying to remember a few great moments of my life with you is really hard because there's been so many great memories we've shared. As a young man, I remember meeting you for the first time with a little uncertainty because you were going to marry my mother, and of course any only child will have some reservations. I soon learned that you have a very gentle soul that welcomed me into your life with open arms. You treated my mother with respect and loved me like your own. As a stepchild, you can only hope for a great stepfather, and you have truly fulfilled that responsibility to the max. So thank you. I'm honored to have you in my life, and I hope you truly know how much I love you. My mother and you have truly shaped who I am today. A few great memories I have with you growing up are awesome vacations, incredible support throughout my Taekwondo years, and incredible educational support and words of wisdom throughout my Air Force enlistment. It has been great to see you as a father-in-law to my wife and grandpa to our amazing kids, Liliana and Gavin. Even though we currently live in South Dakota, you are still a part of our life through technology. I've been truly blessed to have you in my life, and so many of your traits are with me that I can exemplify to our kids in their journey to adulthood. I truly believe the relationship between father and son is a valuable one, and with your support and kind words throughout my life, you've had a tremendous impact on who I am today. There's truly no one like you, and if you have grown to love Bob like we all have, you can appreciate the double life he has as a daredevil. I often smile when I think about all the accomplishments in your life. How did I get so lucky to have someone in my life who is in the Guinness Book of World Records and who has starred in an epic Hollywood film? Lastly, I want to tell you how much I love you and the years of joy you have given me. I have been so lucky to have you in my life, and I hope you know how much I truly love and appreciate you. Thank you for so many great memories, loving my mother, and welcoming me into your life.
It's I who am the lucky one. Thank you, my son.
You're welcome.
And your lovely wife, and Gavin. Hello, Gavin. And Liliana. Hi, Liliana. How are you? Okay.
You want to sing happy birthday to G-Pop? Okay.
You do? Oh, that'd be so
Oh,
nice.
you have bread in your mouth.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Happy birthday. You are just amazing, and what everybody has said in this room really is incredible. You're 80 years old today, you've lived a wonderful life, and so many people have so much love, respect, and honor because of you, and I'm so grateful to be your daughter-in-law. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to one incredible man. Today we celebrate a lifetime of memories. I first met you in December of 2004, when Jeremiah asked me to come home for Christmas to meet his parents. Wow, can't believe 10 years has passed by so fast. As I look back on all the amazing memories we have made, I am so grateful to have you as my father-in-law. You have accomplished so much in your life. I know you as Bob, Dusty Russell, and G-Pop. The things that matter the most to you in your life, you give 100%. You are a very determined individual, and I am so blessed Jeremiah was raised by a strong man and his lovely mother, Becky. Because of you, I have so much to be thankful for. Jeremiah portrays a lot of the same qualities, and we are truly blessed to have you in our life. A few memories I want to share. Hannah Haven, a gorgeous getaway for family to come and relax, and a lovely place you get to call home sweet home. Gig Harbor. We stayed at a bed and breakfast together. Jeremiah and I really enjoyed that experience with you guys. Argosy Cruise. We spent Easter Sunday on the water enjoying quality family time, brunch, and a gorgeous view of downtown Seattle. Port Townsend. We rented a cabin for the weekend to celebrate birthdays and Jeremiah's fire science degree. Thanksgiving with no heat in Des Moines. Yikes, we were so cold, but our hearts were filled with warmth from one another's company. Port Ledlow. We rented a boat for the day to play on the water. Joining with us was my mother and Kenny. We all had a blast. It was such a gorgeous day. But my most favorite memory, which I will always hold dear to my heart, was April 2012, when you came to stay with Liliana and I while Jeremiah was working to comfort us and help us feel safe and secure in our own home. I knew you had a huge heart. You were always there for us, but my love grew for you that week when I knew no matter what life turmoil came our way, you would always be there for us. You are one in a million, G-Pop. I love you with all of my heart. Thanks for everything you have done for us. Happy 80th birthday. So please raise your glasses and let's toast to Bob, Dusty Russell, and the man that we get to call, or the man that our children call G-Pop. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you. And I couldn't be happier to have you as part of our family and your lovely children, Gavin, who's checking us out, and Liliana. I won't call her the T, but she is a joy. And you guys have done very good.
Yeah, I'm going to do the cake while Sharon's doing it. I'm going to pass the cake.
You want me to up there now?
No, I'm going to do it. You go ahead. I'm going to pass the cake around while you're projecting your voice.
I'll try. Okay.
And before Sharon starts, for those of you that have just met Sharon for the first time, why is she here? Because she's a special part of Becky's life and my life, for Becky's life forever, and for me for about, probably 23 or 24 years. And she was the thing at my company, SEH America, which I helped put together and build and grow. She was a reason why everybody thought I was so cool and so good. She covered up for all my shortcomings. So thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome. I wouldn't trade it in that, but it was great. Robert S. Hanna meets Sharon Sue with John Michael Nortz. It was Christmas Eve when Becky brought Bob to our home. Becky was anxious for her two best friends to meet. She had so many lovely thoughts to share, and we were happy to finally meet the man, the legend. We had a nice afternoon, and later Becky told me how impressed Bob was with John, who was about 15 or so. John knew about Bob's car events, and so he talked cars with Bob that afternoon, explained to Bob all about the wonderful 58 Chevy pickup truck of our dreams, as I called it. John told him about the engine and transmission he was putting in the truck, and asked a lot of questions about Bob's experiences as well. This was before 1984, when I went to work for SEH at Becky's urging.
Back then, we didn't know how important Christmas Eve would become for Bob and Becky's life together. But I did know that even though I began working for one of Bob's good friends, I wasn't to acknowledge any of Bob's private life, including Becky and Jeremiah, to anyone. Years later, when Bob retired from SEH, one of our co-workers, Tia Drew Schmidt, asked me at the party if I had known all about Bob's other life. And when I admitted I had even before I came to SEH, she was surprised that I kept that secret so well. Bob and Becky's friendship was worth it for me and for John, who began working at SEH while in his last year of high school. He's still there for these last 25 and a half years. I had been at SEH for several years when he asked me to come work for him in the purchasing department. We came through the electronic age together. Harvard Graphics, Microsoft Word, Excel, to Promex, inventory and purchasing systems on the computer, voicemail, and eventually email. What a developing relationship. I learned working with Mr. H, as he was fondly called by his large employee group, that when you brought a problem to him, you also took some possible solutions, and he picked the most feasible to achieve the outcome he wanted. Then, not unlike Captain Picard from Star Trek, he would tell me to make it so. So he really has that special ability to assemble a team and lead us and make us feel that we were part of his team. You knew he always had your back, so you could always boldly go where no one else had gone before. And I went there a lot. Working overtime, nights and weekends with Bob, I saw that his dedication, integrity, and loyalty, which reinforced my work ethic, to be the best den mother he ever had. I went from Mother Snorts to Mother Snortzenegger while working for Bob. We kept each other's secrets. He didn't tell when I quietly remarried, or when I needed time off to keep my grandkids, and my daughter-in-law and son went to New York 2 times while she was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. She was the first person from Vancouver, Washington to be on the show. Or time off to be with grandkids number 1 and number 2 when number 3 arrived. I felt no qualms about supporting Bob's story about how he fell out of a tree he was on the limbs on, and he was actually recovering from a crash that didn't go so well at a car event. We shared grandkid stories, Nick's triumphs, and Emma and Zoe painting his fingernails various colors, and it came to work that way. And I had to ask, of course. His beautiful great-grandson, Makai, brought much love to the family. We shared my other J-kid, Jeremiah, a.k.a. the Karate Kid. There was moving from the A-frame in Brush Prairie to Salmon Creek and then to Swim. Jeremiah going into the Air Force, Iraq, Afghanistan, and meeting and marrying Christy. And now there's even more great-grandkids for Bob and Becky to enjoy, Liliana and Gavin. My little mother, Sue, who's 94, still loves that they make it a point to visit her when they are in town. She fondly remembers picking Jeremiah up at school, and the teacher asked if she was grandma. When I and 3 grandkids and I took the train to spend a few days with Bob and Becky, I enjoyed watching him play catch with Logan, who was 10. He let Logan and Michaela, who was 8, actually drive the boat to Swim Bay, letting Brianna May be herself, which is tough when you're 4 years old. And Logan getting back out of the car as we were preparing to leave to go give Uncle Bobby another thank you and a hug goodbye. This is a 6'1" boy now pitching for his high school team. They are still asking when they can go back and visit Uncle Bob and Aunt Betty. So for this Bob's 80th year, I can still hear the words to Forever Young applying to Bob. May the good Lord be with you down every road you roam, and may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home. May your heart always be joyful, may your song always be sung, and may you stay forever young.
Thank you, Sharon. And Sharon's very good about keeping secrets. And when she worked with me for probably, maybe other than department she was in before she came to work for me, maybe 20 years, I dealt with people, thousands of people, all over the world. I was the premier procurement officer for a major Japanese company, and my acclaim in the world for being cool was unsurpassed by anybody. And all this time, nobody knew that all the correspondence back and forth, I never was able to open an email, and I never sent an email. It's all her fault. She made me look so good. So it's the only advice I have for you young people, and the old people too. Surround yourself with talent. And don't be afraid to have somebody that maybe knows more than you or can do more than you can do, work for you, because they're going to make your life a lot easier and a lot better. And someday they'll go on and leave and go somewhere else, but in the meantime, hire the best. Don't hire someone that can't do your job. Hire someone that can. Okay, enough of the preaching.
I started out with a couple of pages, and we've heard so much really good stuff.
Before she starts, I want you all to know that this is the matriarch of the Hannah clan.
Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. I won't tell you how many pages there are. I'll just read them. On the event of the 80th birthday of Robert Schumann Hannah, my dear brother Robert, a.k.a. Dusty Russell, his fascinating avocation, Bobbert, B-O-B-E-R-T, his mother's pet name for him. I guess John and I usually called him Bob, when we called him at all in the first years of his life. In 1934, Leonia, New Jersey, John 2 and I 4 were doubtless aware that our mother was very large in the midsection because she had another baby in there. We were not eager to have this event take place. We were perfectly content being the apples of our parents' eyes, one boy and one girl. What would this intrusion be, boy or girl, taking our mom's attention away from us? One of us was going to have to share a bedroom. Which one? And so we endured the suspense, the waiting, while our poor mother grew even larger. Our New York City father was a commuter. He usually rode the train through the tunnel from New Jersey to his professorship at Columbia University in New York City. Early in March, the train going into a tunnel had somehow been derailed. Many people hurt, including Professor Paul Robert Hannah. I can envision the scene still as he related it to us. Horrible. When he came home from the hospital, our father had a large bandage on his neck, covering the monstrous cut he acquired while trying to help other injured passengers away from the train and the swollen river. Mother, standing at the head of the stairs with John and me, gasped, lurched, and propelled herself, her unbalanced body, down the stairs. I recall nothing after that until I was aware that our new sibling and mother were finally home. Bob had arrived unexpectedly, early, resulting from the shock of that fall. I was aware of a housekeeper, she presumably keeping the new brother safe from his curious siblings, while also caring for both mother and baby. The fall, of course, necessitated cesarean delivery, and the rest was essential to both mother's and baby's return to health. One other vivid memory from the time of Bob's arrival, I was apparently convinced that my mom no longer had time for me, probably loved that new baby more than she did me. So what better to do than to run away? I can still picture me with a small bag under one arm and my teddy tucked under the other. I passed the hedges next door, got a few blocks away, began to feel lonely, and went into a store where the proprietor recognized me quickly, putting the end to my misadventure. So, now understand, I left because I was jealous of that baby. So leap ahead to 1935. A Chrysler sedan pulling an aluminum Airstream house trailer on the way to the new life in Palo Alto, California, and to the education professorship at Stanford University, awaiting our dad. John and I loved that trip, young as we were. We had a chauffeur, goodness knows where and when he slept, poor guy, and we did stop here and there to give everyone a break from the many miles of exciting, unfamiliar territory. We passed on our way to California, and guess who slept through a good deal of that trip? Then there came a couple of years in a rented house in Palo Alto while our parents dickered with famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright on creating a fabulous dream home for our little family. Overseeing this tremendous venture, our parents were on the building site quite a bit. Sometimes John and I went with them. Bob, much too dependent at his age to be hauled around, stayed at home with our housekeeper. He was left out. When we did move into this castle of redwood and glass, Bob was old enough to take it all in. As Bob was barely out of babyhood, his room was the closest to that of our parents. Mine, much to my distress, was way down the narrow hallway where I, lying in bed, unprotected from the probable horrors of the field creatures lurking just on the other side of my glass bedroom outer wall. John located the bedroom in between his siblings, fortunately, with some comfort. He might come to my rescue. Our new home was marvelous. What a wonderful time we three had growing up there. A wide concrete terrace extended almost around the structure, great for roller skates, wagons, bikes, and more wagons. The numerous deciduous oak trees we early learned were verboten for climbing. However, our Bob was not deterred. He did climb, did not fall onto the unforgiving concrete underneath. Being fearless, he would have continued climbing had Mom not discovered him. Bob may even recall that the spanking administered by our dad convinced him that only punishment followed any future unauthorized adventures. But he never caught you at a lot of them. Our thoughtful parents asked our architect to include a very large playroom in the house. Large, indeed it was. We built enormous, fantastic cities with heavy pine blocks. We had the electric train set up much of the time. Our dad built us an elegant marionette stage, complete with curtains. We three wrote the script and manipulated the actor marionettes, including Alice in Wonderland and a clown. We had an antique Victrola and dozens of fine old classical records that inspired our interest in classical music, and it really did. Lining one wall of this long room were bookshelves holding dozens of books and dictionaries avidly read by all of us. So we thrived, the three of us, and Terry, our Irish Terrier, devoted to Mom and Bob alike. Those innocent times, we roamed the Stamford Hills, often Terry in tow, exploring the legend of mysterious Frenchman Peter Coup, who had built tunnels in our Pine Hill in search of a source of water many years ago. We rode our bikes everywhere on that wonderful, sprawling campus, snitching ripe fruit from the gardens of other professors, climbing hundreds of trees, had a war with the three sons of the campus pastor, dug for possible treasure near the Frenchman's Bridge, and explored the hidden tunnels that Coos had dug both sides of Pine Hill. Arms were broken, giant cuts on arms and legs. We occasionally got lost, and always the dreaded poison oak. Bob never complained when John and I speeded ahead of him. In fact, he was often out in front of us. Our brother Bob developed a puckish sense of humor early on. His imagination was prolific and terrific. John, I think you'll recall these too. Recall his dreams of Coat Man and Wolf Man. Did he make these up just to amuse and terrify us? He was and is a wonderful storyteller, but then he has had the adventure life that lends itself to tall tales. His grin is a telltale of the degree of seriousness we are to take him for. When he questions our decisions or knowledge or opinions on something, we must look carefully at that grin to determine just where we stand with him. It is hard when you are the younger brother and also burdened with an older sister. Girls tend to try to manage their brothers. It is especially hard when you are the younger brother of an obviously talented and knowledgeable heir apparent. Bob would get terribly upset with John and me at times. Often that anger was well-deserved. John got everything before Bob did, or so it appeared to the younger brother. Occasionally, discontent resulted in a fight, but John, older and much larger, Bob somehow often got his licks in and came out satisfied with his relative victory, even when he sustained a black eye. As the years passed, this rivalry receded, and the two became friendly rivals, building surfboards for our real Del Mar beach house, executing exciting architectural marvels of blocks in our playroom, digging a whole city, roads and all, in the clay back behind the chicken yard. Yes, we did have chickens. Bantams that our doting father gave us one Easter. What a mistake. Bob has a compelling interest in and knowledge of gardening, as we called it. Shades of his father. Victory garden, fruit orchard, flowers, farm animals, goats for milk, a pig for meat, plus specimen oak and pine trees. The boys mowed the extensive lawns, trimmed hedges, harvested fruit and vegetables, cleaned up after the livestock, watered and weeded, hung around Dad when he worked with the proposed Easter piglet. This beast quadrupled in size, for it was finally butchered for Thanksgiving. You guys remember that? When our parents were abroad on government and educational ventures in the 1940s, we three were incarcerated in boarding schools. So my brothers, especially Bob, became almost strangers to me. He kept more to himself, doubtless dreaming of some adventure that would take him out on his own. He was, much to his parents' consternation, a maverick, apparently rejecting formal education in favor of the learning that came from living life's adventures. This seemed to satisfy his unusually alert mind and soul. One thing I've always known, if I were in trouble, Brother Bob would be there to help me through the crisis. At times, he even managed to turn my opinion or directions around, much to my benefit. He's an unusually caring man, although he will probably scoff at such accolades. He is interested in my doings and comings and goings of my 4 children. He's provided a wonderful home and life for Becky. He stays close to his children and grandchildren and great-grandson. John and I wish he had settled in the Bay Area instead of far-off Washington State. Bob is fun to be around and is so knowledgeable about so many diverse things and has made a great success of his life. My children all feel so comfortable around Bob. The iconoclastic uncle. Happy birthday, Brother Bob, and may your life continue to be filled with love, good health, and as always, adventure. I remember Bob sitting at my little table to play with me when I was about 6 or so. Mom has a photo in her album of this. He was on some tiny chair and really was playing a game with me. I think it was probably Game of Life, my favorite in those days. He always treated me with undivided attention and playfulness. My favorite story about Bob is this one. He called my mom and asked if he had extra tickets to a great concert at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. I remember Mom said it was some guy named James Brown. She clearly didn't know who it was. And Bob said it was fine for kids. I know I went. I don't remember whether my siblings went, but at least one other. I think Bob picked us up and drove, then returned us home after the event. I don't know then what a treat I was in for. James Brown and his band of renown. If my father had known this, we never would have been allowed to go, but wow, it was so great. I think we were seated just a few rows up from the floor and we saw it all. The backup singers doing their slick moves, and musicians. I have a flash of trombones and saxophone players moving around while they played, and James Brown just being himself. Great music, fantastic audience. I thank Bob for giving me that experience. What a thrill it was. My other story is that the Hannah crowd was gathered at the Clark home in Sleepy Hollow in Marin County. one weekend for a barbecue. I remember we were all playing some kind of ball game, maybe volleyball, and the ball went up onto the semi-flat roof. We got a ladder, and Bob climbed up to get it down. Then he jumped off the roof onto the grass. Nana, our mother, that's what the grandchildren call her, Nana yelled at him sometimes about that he was going to give her a heart attack. I remember her saying that a lot while Bob was growing up. Bob throwing down his napkin in disgust at Granddad's stubbornness, scraping back his chair and leaving the room. It was quite the scene. Sure lived up to the Thanksgiving that year. Overall, he was always the cool uncle, the one who dared to try new things and think new ways, the one who turned up at family gathering one summer in a slick seersucker suit. We could tell him anything and knew he wouldn't blab to our mom and dad. When we asked him a question, we knew he'd give us a real answer. And he was always funny. I love that he retains that little adventure kid inside him to this day. Much love and tons of hugs to my Uncle Bob on his 80th birthday. You packed a lot of living into your 80 years, but but you'll never be old to me. This is from younger daughter Laura, who's she's 54 or 55, whatever. This is typical of what Johnson, my younger brother, did. I was 18, a ballet dancer living in San Francisco with a few roommates who were in their late 20s. Kathy was like a big sister, and the guys seemed worldly. They all gave me advice, and they protected me, or so I thought. The big miscalculation came when a man called Jason took a fancy to me. He was in his 30s, claimed to be rich, and some kind of Persian aristocrat whose family had escaped from the Shah. With the Shah. He took me to an exclusive club where I felt like I was being interviewed for my suitability. He kept mentioning how many of his friends lived in Tiburon with blonde American wives. On the way home, he actually took my hand and put his ring on my finger, saying it was a promise of our future. The whole thing made me feel slightly queasy, but my roommates thought I'd hit the jackpot and should be thrilled. Seemed like a lot of bull, but they were older and more experienced, so I went out with him a couple more times, and he always treated me with respect, nothing more than a kiss goodnight. This was refreshing, as I was used to guys being rather more forward. When he asked me to his home in Tahoe, everyone thought I was an idiot to even hesitate. He enlisted their support, swearing there would be others there and we'd have separate rooms. Honestly, I didn't particularly feel like I knew or even liked him, since he spent most of the time talking about how fabulous he and his family were. But I was persuaded that it was an adventure and I'd get to know him on the trip. Well, that was true. Although we were supposed to travel in his Ferrari, he showed up in the same old Toyota hatchback, as snow was in the forecast. Around Auburn, he told me we couldn't go to the house. There was some problem with power, or the plumbing, or some other mishap. But we'd see it another time. Meet all his family then. That queasy feeling got stronger. We arrived to the Cal Neva Lodge on a border where gambling was legal. Seemed okay, though not exactly impressive, with a casino, a show, nightclubs and such. But Jason came back from the desk to tell me that, alas, alack, there was only one room available because of the weather. With much reassurance, he wouldn't dream of taking advantage of the situation, that I was perfectly safe with him, etc., etc., etc. We went to the cheesy dinner show while I tried to ignore the growing ache in my gut. Okay, you don't need the gory details about the rest of the night. Suffice to say that after much wrestling and arguments, it dawned on me that this guy was disgusting. I left his ring in the bathroom, grabbed my bag, and sneaked out. He yelled after me, "Fine. All I need to do is pick up the phone and there will be 2 or 3 women up here and you are a fool. I was going to marry you. You have nowhere to go. I'll give you one more chance. This did not entice me back. So there I was in the middle of the night with about $10, a Macy's card, and it was snowing. A lot. In the lobby, the bellboys took pity, hid me in another wing. Big shocker, there were plenty of rooms. And let me know when Jason drove up the next morning. They let me use the phone. I called Uncle Bob. He was the man who I trusted and could make sure that Jason never bothered me again. I didn't care how. I trusted he could be convincing that I was not without protection and that it would be in Jason's best interest to leave this particular blonde American alone. He didn't lecture me. He just got the information and said he'd take care of it and made sure I had money to get back home. But we were snowed in by then, no buses were traveling. I was stuck there for a few days and eventually got a ride back home with the film crew. That was a whole other adventure, and that taught me a few more unpleasant lessons and why I never wanted to move to LA. But I made it at last and crawled in my very own bed and was promptly sick. Uncle Bob called to make sure I got home and to assure me that Jason's situation was handled. A few months later, at a Hannah family gathering, he and I took a little walk, and I learned people in their 20s don't really know all that much. Always have your own money. Don't go places where you are underage. Don't go away with a man you are not already sleeping with. Men who keep telling you how great they are not so great. When there are huge red flags waving in your face, do not ignore them. Stay in control of your own fate. Never be swayed by promises of riches and travel. Respect yourself first. Trust your own instincts, not your friend. Trust your Uncle Bob. That meant so much to her, and to me, when I found out about it. He's quite a guy.
Thank you, dear sis. John, bring it home.
I'll try to keep this short. This is from Christine.
So speak up, pretend you're in court.
Happy birthday, Uncle Bob.
Thank you.
I have always admired your spirit, resilience, sense of adventure, and courage. I hope you have a wonderful 80th birthday filled with love. I love you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
This is from Katie. This might require some reading glasses. Apparently she's composed a poem. Ode to Uncle Bob. I am the youngest Hannah cousin. We're 4 shy of a dozen. That's a cool thing to be. It's a great family, but it's not without repercussion. You see, my uncle is Bob, so I'm a bit of a snob. For me, it was normal, commonplace, and informal for a man to jump buses, no prob. Uncle Bob won't break a sweat. His equal we haven't yet met. He's tried and true. He'll stand up for you. It's just the same for Ellen and Brett. Bob is funny and quietly kind, well-bred and very refined. He is Dusty Russell, not afraid of a tussle. There's not a dare that he has ever declined. When you're Bob Hannah, you're Uncle Top Banana. If it's mischief you crave, there's no one as brave. Well, except maybe for my Nana. Love, Katie Jean Hannah Dixon.
Nice, very nice.
Well, I'll tell just one Bob story, keep it short.
Did you clear it with me?
Did I what? Clear it?
Sorry.
Oh, well,
Okay.
I didn't think it was necessary.
Get it over, brother. Take it home.
Well, you've all heard about our upbringing, and my sister and I tended to be what was expected of us, and she married a lawyer, and I became one, and Bob went off on his own and did his own thing. And I remember one night I was awakened about 3 o'clock in the morning, a telephone call. And I answered the phone, and they said, "Are you John Hanna?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Do you have a brother, Robert?" And I said, "Yeah, what's he done now?" And they said, "Well, we're calling you from the ICU unit at Mountain View Hospital." I said, "Well, what's happened?" He said, "Well, we're not sure. He was found in the parking lot outside of his car. The door was open and he was lying on the ground. And so we brought him in here. We found some identification on him, and we're not sure exactly what happened." And I said, "Well, what's wrong with him?" And he said, "Well, we think he has a ruptured spleen." And I said, "My God, how did that happen?" He said, "Well, we really don't know." Well, I heard the story later that he was in, I think it was Atlanta, doing the famous dive bomber stunt, and he overshot the landing, crashed, was unconscious. They put him in an ambulance. He's on the way to the hospital in Atlanta, and he wakes up and says, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" And they say, "You're in Atlanta and you're going to the hospital." He said, "No, I'm not. You're taking me to the airport." So I don't know how the hell he convinced them to do it, but they took him to the airport. He got on a plane, flew home, got in his car, and drove as far as the hospital before he collapsed. And I said to him, I said, "Bob, what were you thinking?" And he said, I was going to be in a hospital. I just wanted to be home." So Brett, come up here. Brett and I have a, huh?
You got it right? That's pretty close.
Pretty close?
Yep.
Close enough?
Close enough.
Brett and I worked out a little.
Yeah, hours of practice.
Next week, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Cincinnati, Miami, LA.
Hours of rehearsal, okay.
Quote Stephen Stills, "This is our first gig, we're scared shitless." All right.
Another show again. Can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making mayhem with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. Another show again. Like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends. The world we know will soon be turning our way. Our way is another show again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't get on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again.
That was it.
You guys have an agent?
Almost heaven, steel arena, wall of fire, danger all around us. Hear the crowd cheer, do the slide for life, crashing through the ice wall. Better not tell your wife. County show, take me back to the place for which I long. Steel arena, days of glory. How I wish they were not gone. Around the track he speeds, see him racing there. Now he goes for distance, flying through the air. County show, take me back to the place
My bad.
for which I long. Steel arena, days of glory. Becky says they are long gone. Becky says they are long gone.
What a closer. My God.
So you thank everybody for coming.
Okay, it's pretty hard, to follow a closer like that, but I want to thank you all for coming and reading your memorabilia upon this young boy here. And family is important. Without a family, you got nothing. So thank you. Made my life very pleasurable, and will continue to do so. And maybe we'll get together again when I'm 90. Yeah! And you'll be 94, and you'll be 92, and you'll be 99. 100, okay.
All right.
But thank you very much. I thank Mackay for all your help. And I'm sorry LeBron James couldn't make it. But he'll be sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, like that would have been a story.